That was one of those scenes that was
Did you know that there's another actress in Titanic that also worked with Peter Jackson?
the majority of what you see in Titanic movie is based on.
Hey everyone, it's James Martin. Welcome back to another brand new YouTube video. I'm here with a very, very special guest, Avila, who, strangely enough, I actually found him on TikTok. He posts a lot of behind the scenes kind of stories and information regarding a very infamous movie you might have heard once or twice called The Titanic, directed and I believe written by James Cameron, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm super excited. We have Raf here with us. So thanks so much, Raf, for joining us.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, Raf, why don't you introduce yourself? So, what do you usually do?
So my full name is Rafael Avila. I usually go by Raf or Rafa. During the day, I'm a consultant. I do tech consulting here in Toronto, so not really anything related to videos. Now, I guess I'm a TikToker as of like 2 months. So it's really consultant by day and a little bit of everything by night.
Tell me, why do you love Titanic?
This is a great question. And you know what? Every single time I go live on TikTok, somebody asks me the same question. Actually, they ask me multiple times. And I always respond in the same way. I would say, ever since I was a little kid, I've had like a weird obsession with disasters and peril and history. So I was 6 or 7 years old, and I remember I was in my home country. I'm originally from Honduras, and we were watching Discovery Channel or something. The show came on, and it was about a ship, and it was so cool, the way that they dissected everything forensically. And then I asked my dad, I was like, Papi, what is this about? And he's like, oh, it's about a famous ship. It sank. For me, that was so captivating. I thought it was so interesting. And then a few months later, we all know what happened in 1997, the James Cameron Titanic film came out. So me as a little kid, I was like, wait, that's the show. So I get to see what I was researching about and what I was looking at. I got to see it on the big screen. And for me, it really just sparked that obsession. I would just go to the public library when I was a little kid. I would take out every single book there was on the Titanic, watch every TV show, watch every movie, everything that had to do with the Titanic, and really just disasters in general. I love seeing the human interactions, and I just love seeing the cinematography. And because you start thinking, like, what would I do if I was in that situation?
So how did you get started on TikTok? Where did this all begin?
It almost happened as a fluke. My girlfriend and I last September downloaded TikTok because we saw all the kids talking about it, and we saw Instagram meme accounts posting videos. So we're like, okay, let's check this out. So I created an account, and then I remember I posted a video, not Titanic related, and then I went to bed, and then the next day it had like 5,000 views. I'm like, whoa, okay. So I started playing around with learning how to make a TikTok, because it's actually not easy. It's not easy to make a TikTok. It requires a decent amount of work. So the Titanic anniversary is always April 15th. So for me, ever since I was a little kid, I've really commemorated that. On April 14th, there's always a live stream that happens on YouTube. I usually just watch the movie. It's like my little mini tradition. And then that's when I got the idea. I was like, you know what? Maybe I can make a TikTok, explaining a fun Titanic fact just to commemorate the sinking. So I decided to film a couple of key clips. I explained what I wanted to say, and then I added a couple of titles that kind of supplemented what I was saying. And then after an hour, I was like, okay, this is cool. So I added a caption, I added a couple of hashtags like Titanic sinking, disasters, April 15th, something like that. And then within probably 10 to 15 seconds, I noticed that the video started getting it got like 100 views, and it got like 300 views. And then after like a minute, it was at 1,000. And then I'd never seen a video of mine gain that traction that one was getting. I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm onto something here. Within 5 minutes, it was at like 10,000 views, and you just see all the notifications coming with the comments, and it was exploding. I realized, okay, the style of video that I'm making seems to be resonating, and I think the topic also resonates because I connected it to the real Titanic historical disaster and a movie that the majority of people are familiar with. I was like, hey, you remember this guy here that you probably didn't notice? Well, he was a real person. Let me tell you his story. So that's really how I got started. And then after that, I didn't stop. I doubled down, and I just kept on making Titanic videos.
But that's really, really awesome. Because I noticed when I went through your TikTok that you had some stuff before the Titanic behind the scenes, and then you just consistently kept posting Titanic. Let's talk about Titanic.
There's another movie that came out after Titanic. I'm not sure a lot of people are aware. It's called Ghosts of the Abyss, where basically James Cameron goes back and goes on another dive to the real Titanic wreck, which is a really cool movie that I recommend to anybody if they're interested in Titanic. The majority of what you see in the Titanic movie is based on real facts. All of the secondary characters, those are probably all real characters. The only people who were fictional characters, Jack and Rose, were completely fictional characters. Rose's mom, for example, Ruth, fictional. Cal Hockley, fictional. Lovejoy, fictional. But literally everybody else from the 1912 scenes, 100% real. And a lot of the TikToks that I make are featuring those historical people that people would already remember from the movie. But I'm like, hey, listen, this was a real person. Let me tell you their story. So they did it in two shoots, really. There was the modern day filming, which included, you had the dive to the Titanic. That was its own film set. And then you had the 1912 scenes, which the majority of them were filmed in Mexico because that's where they built almost a full-blown Titanic replica. It was on top of a tank so that they could take off pieces of that set and sink it for later in the movie, which was pretty cool. They only really built one side of the ship. And now they got into an issue because for one of the scenes when the ship is setting sail in Southampton, they needed to show the opposite side of the ship. So James Cameron was like, okay, what I'll do is I'll make everything backwards and then I'll flip the footage in post-production. So when they filmed everything, all of the logos for White Star Line, everything written here, everything was in reverse. It was backwards. And then the footage was just reversed to give it the effect. The famous scene where Jack draws Rose, it was the first scene that they filmed. And the reason they filmed that was because the actual ship, the set of the ship was still being built. So James Cameron was like, okay, let's film some internal scenes. So Kate Winslet, she's like, okay, I'm about to get naked in front of this man. So she actually just flashed Leo right before they went on set. So that way it would take away all the awkwardness. And then they went and filmed all of that. And then the hand that you see drawing Rose in that scene, that's actually James Cameron's hand, because he was the one that drew that famous, naked picture with the heart of the ocean and everything. He's also left-handed, so again, they had to flip it because Jack is right-handed. The grand staircase scene, the water comes through and it explodes and everything, and then the whole grand staircase floods. That was one of those scenes that was a one-shot scene. They could only do this in one shot, and it was the real set that they were going to break. They did this in one shot, and everything worked out perfectly, but it was a very, very high-pressure shot. And they created this big dining room set so that it could be dumped into the tank, and they were going to sink that. So they filmed an entire scene where Rose and Jack are fighting with Lovejoy, and he's chasing them with a gun and everything as the set is sinking, which was eventually just deleted because it didn't make any sense. So they spent all this time and millions of dollars when, the scene ended up getting deleted anyway. But it's a really cool scene. It doesn't make any sense with regards to the storyline, which is why James Cameron took it out, but it's still a really cool scene cinematically.
What's funny, and this might be a big eye-opener for a lot of people listening, is that this actually happens quite a lot in movies. Like, it's really sad, especially when you and I watch a scene that's like, oh wow, that looks so great, so fantastic, and then it doesn't make it into the movie. Unfortunately, that happens all the time. I was just thinking about this interview last night, and I was trying to think about all the stuff that I knew about. I don't know nearly as much about the behind the scenes of specifically the Titanic as you do, but because I know that you did a TikTok on the captain, played by Bernard Hill, was also later in one of the most famous movies of all time, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Did you know that there's another actress in Titanic that also worked with Peter Jackson?
I don't know. Was it the lady that played Ruth? I'm not really sure. I'd have to. No, I can't say that I know off the top of my head.
Now, this came to a surprise only because I did a little bit of digging, but actually Kate Winslet worked with Peter Jackson. Back in the day, Peter Jackson worked on a lot of independent feature films on his own, mostly a lot of really horrific gore type movies, but the movie he made before The Lord of the Rings was called Heavenly Creatures. It was a story about two sisters that eventually murdered their mother, and it was this horrific murder that was infamous to New Zealand itself, and so Peter Jackson made a movie on that. Kate Winslet played one of the sisters.
I never would have known that. That's very, very interesting.
Probably the only other information I do know about the Titanic that you might know, but a lot of people may not know. For the longest time, Titanic was the second highest grossing film of all time. James Cameron is actually responsible for the two highest grossing movies of all time. Number 2 was Titanic, number 1 was Avatar. Of course, this was all beaten by Avengers Endgame when it came out. Avengers Endgame got $2.8 billion at the box office, which beat Avatar, obviously beat Titanic, and so Titanic is now number 3. Going back to Titanic, what's your favorite thing about the Titanic movie, or especially regarding the behind the scenes of it? What's your favorite thing that you love talking about?
I actually made a video about this. So in the movie, people always ask me what my favorite scene is in the movie. That there's really 2 scenes. There's the pre-sinking and the sinking. So in the sinking scenes, I think everything in the sinking was done spectacularly. I love as soon as the band finishes and then the water kind of takes over, they actually sunk that set where you see the water coming over the bridge, and it's just mass pandemonium everywhere. People trying to free up those 2 collapsible boats that were on top of the bridge, and it's just people on top of people, and just everything about it was incredible. And there's this one shot where you see what's happening at the front of the ship, and it like goes back, and you see the full length of the ship. And the way they did that was it was really 2 pieces. They had the front of the set, and then they had the back of the set. They were attached, and then they put it together in CGI, corrected for the waterline and everything, and then it looked incredible. So that for me was the sinking one. But I think my all-time favorite shot is what they called the $1 million shot. The shot after Jack is like, I'm the king of the world, and it pans back, and you see the full length of the ship. You really get the magnitude of how big it was at the time and how luxurious it was. And the interesting part about that is that it literally cost $1 million to make that shot, because there were so many different components to that. And we have to remember that in 1996, 1997, CGI was not what it is today. So they were really pushing the boundaries of what they could do back then. And I personally think that CGI shot still holds up today. I've seen TikToks where like, oh, look, it looks so fake. Yeah, you can't compare it to today's standards, but I think it looks incredible. And the way they did that was they filmed Leo and the actor who plays Fabrizio, they filmed them on a green screen. Then they had the model of the Titanic. Then they had a CGI model. Then they added all of these different components like the water, the waves, the skyline and everything, and they put it all together, and then they created this $1 million shot, and that really is just such a powerful shot to me. And it's beautiful the way they put it together. The music, James Horner's music, that is my favorite shot of the entire movie. Whenever people ask me about Titanic, I always specify first that my obsession is with the event. Yeah, from a movie perspective, it's great. I just always would skip to shots of the Titanic, or look at the scenes with the real people. Look at when the Titanic hit the iceberg, and I would usually just start the movie right when it starts sinking, because that to me was the interesting piece about it. And what a lot of people don't know is that if you look at the deleted scenes of Titanic, they actually feature a lot of the real stories from that night of the real people. The reason they were cut out was mostly for timing purposes, and since they didn't really deal with the main plot with Jack and Rose, they were cut out, which makes sense.
Awesome. Well, again, I really appreciate all this information. I mean, my mind's already blown from all this behind the scenes information. I always love learning more about how the movies are being made. That's one of my big passions. So again, I really appreciate you sharing all of that. Thank you so much, Raf.
My pleasure. This has been really fun.
Awesome. I've had a lot of fun too. And by the way, guys, if you want to check out more of Raf's social media and want to check out more of his TikTok videos, he's posting every single day. Lots of great information. I'm following him. Lots of great stories he's posting. You can go and check out those links down in the description below. And we're also going to tag his YouTube channel up in the cards and on the end screen at the end of this video. Again, thanks so much everyone for watching this video. If you got any value out of this, please like the button and please subscribe because we got tons of videos coming out every single week. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic week, and let me know your thoughts on Titanic too. Share it down below in the comments. All right, good luck, and I will see you guys next time.